Hello everyone, welcome to the lesson Indigo. This is the third part explanation of a four-parter series. It's written by Louis Fisher. Moving on. In this video and the next video, you have to take into consideration three important points that you have to look out for. These are vital points and it will be asked in questions also. These points are: what did Gandhiji do to uplift the socio-economic conditions during his stay at Champaran? How did the Champaran incident influence the peasants? Why was the Champaran incident a turning point in his life? In his life, as in Gandhiji's life. Ma'am will now explain what did Gandhiji do to uplift the socio-economic conditions during his stay at Champaran. Ma'am?
Gandhi never contented himself with the large political or economic solutions. He saw the cultural and social backwardness in the Champaran villages and wanted to do something about it immediately. He appealed for teachers. Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh, two young men who had just joined Gandhi as disciples, and their wives volunteered for the work. Several more came from Bombay, Pune, and other distant parts of the land. Devdas and Gandhi's youngest son arrived from the ashram, and so did Mrs. Gandhi. Primary schools were opened in 6 villages. Kasturbai taught the ashram rules on personal cleanliness and community sanitation.
Ma'am, how did Gandhiji address the health concerns of Champaran district?
Well, during those times, the health conditions were miserable. Gandhi got a doctor to volunteer his services for 6 months. There were medicines were available: castor oil, quinine, and sulfur ointment. Anybody who showed a coated tongue was given a dose of castor oil. Anybody with malaria fever received quinine plus castor oil, and anybody with skin eruptions received ointment plus castor oil. He also noticed the filthy state of the women's clothes, and he asked his wife Kasturbai to talk to them. And during his long stay in Champaran, he kept a regular check at the long distance in his ashram work as well. So we see that he really had the social and the economic conditions and the health conditions also concerns for the people.
Moving on. Ma'am, how did the Champaran incident influence the peasants, or what did the peasants or the sharecroppers learn from the Champaran incident?
Well, the Champaran incident, if one sees, did begin with an act of defiance. It grew out of an attempt to alleviate the distress of large number of poor peasants. And this was a typical Gandhi pattern. His politics were intertwined with the practical day-to-day problems of the millions. His was not a loyalty to abstractions. It was a loyalty to living human beings.
Ma'am, what do you mean by the sentence that you just mentioned? His loyalty was not that to abstractions?
Well, abstractions. In the present day scenario, if I would explain, it would be this way: that we have our political leaders who speak, or maybe in the papers, things are done. Various programs, policies are framed. However, in concrete, in reality, it doesn't seem to take place. Now, here it's very contradicting to what Gandhi did. Hence, it says that his was not a loyalty to abstractions, but it was concrete, something which he really did. It was perceptible for him, showing the concerns not only politically but socio-economic and even health. So that is what is meant by not abstractions, but it was concrete.
Ma'am, so you mean that Gandhiji worked on ground realities instead of that of paper, right?
Yes, he taught a lesson on self-reliance. In everything Gandhi did, he tried to mold a new free India who could stand on his own feet and thus make India free.
Ma'am, how else were the peasants influenced by Gandhiji?
See, this movement brought a spontaneous support from thousands of peasants. The sharecroppers were bound together and were free from fear of going to jail. One can also say that this was the first civil disobedient movement of India.
Ma'am, I would like to contradict you here. If I'm not mistaken, the Sepoy Mutiny, that is the rise of Mangal Pandey and Rani Lakshmi Bai, had taken place somewhere in the 1800s, 1857 to be specific. So, how can you say that this was the first civil disobedience movement of India? The freedom struggle had started long before that.
True. The Sepoy Mutiny took place in the year 1857, as you said, and this incident is in the year 1917. So a lot has happened. However, why is this termed as the first civil disobedience movement? Reason being, Sepoy Mutiny was a mutiny, an uprising which involved war and bloodshed. And this was a mass movement without violence based on satyagraha. And this was truly, that was a rebel, mutiny. People had revolted. But here people did revolt for their own rights. And this was the first movement, as I said, without violence. Hence, in the history, you might have read in the chapter of naturalism, that this was the first civil disobedience movement of India.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll continue in part 4. Thank you for watching. We'll deal in much detail in part 4. Thank you.